I'd like to bring this meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to do the invocation, and Chief Coring is going to be so kind enough to do the invocation, and we'll follow by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you have not been here for a while, this is the flag that we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance to. Chief Coring.
You'll stand and bow with me. Heavenly Father, we come with gratitude for the opportunity to gather here today. We thank you for the leaders you have placed in these positions, our aldermen who have chosen to serve our city. We ask for your divine wisdom to guide their deliberations and decisions, grant them clarity of thought and discernment in their judgment, and the spirit of unity as they work together for the common good. Help them to hear the needs of our community and to act with integrity and compassion. May their decisions reflect your will and bring about the best outcomes that affect all residents of our city. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be seated.
I'm going to start off with the ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on this agenda, please so state at this time. Not seeing any. Obviously, if one arises during the session, please just raise your hand. I will entertain a motion to go into public comment.
So moved.
Is there a second to that? There's a motion. There's a motion. I don't know what's going on. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. For public comment tonight, if you're here to talk about the historic district, I'm going to ask you to hold your public comment until we get to that agenda item. So we put all those topics, all those speakers in one spot. And so when we go into public comment in just a minute or so, it'll be about any other topic. If you've got any other topic, that's the time to go to the podium and do that. This meeting will be conducted in the appropriate decorum. There's a lot of noise out there in public and social media. Please, this meeting is to be held with that decorum, and so I know that you all will do that. And with that, Madam Clerk.
Hugh Fosbury.
Does that work? So my name is Hugh Fosbury, and I live at 120 Westmore Street, just down the street. And I am here representing the 4th of July Festival committee members and board members. And I'm here just to say thank you. Everyone knows we've just wrapped up the festival this past week, and just wanted to give a quick kind of lay of the land of how we thought it went. And again, just to say thank you to a number of really important people. And I'm representing Lucinda Arnold. She's the president this year. She couldn't be here, so she asked me to attend on her behalf. I want to start with the city of Southport. Could not do it, obviously, without the city of Southport's support and just total control of the event. The team with Elena Dale does remarkable things for the festival, and I had the benefit of seeing all the behind the workings of what they do, and it's remarkable. Obviously, Chief Coring, couldn't do it without him. Amazing. Chief Drew, same way. Tom Stanley, the Public Works, what they do after this festival, the night it ends, to get the city back in shape for the next morning. You wouldn't even know the festival happened almost. It's remarkable. I was out there at 1 a.m. after the fireworks, and it was a disaster. 7 a.m. the next morning, you'd never know what happened. It's amazing. So thank you. Also want to thank the multitude of sponsors and, of course, all the volunteers. We have 50 plus volunteers that work on this festival, and we couldn't do it without you. We're always looking for more. So anybody here wants to help next year, Love to have you. My name is Hugh. Just real quickly, we thought it was a successful festival. There were a few weather-related events to start it out. We had to stop our first band a little bit early, the Embers, because of the rain. Day two, a little bit of rain during the naturalization ceremony, but all in all, it was as expected, hot as always. We had good crowds, we felt. The security was amazing. I don't know if Chief Coring, you're here. Yeah, it was just remarkable. Security everywhere. On land, on the water, it was amazing. So great job there. A couple of events that are kind of notable. We started off on the Friday night, June 27th, opening ceremony, very successful. Next morning, the Freedom Run. This is the second year we brought this back. Over 400 participants in, there was a 5K, there was a 1K and a 5K that morning, started at 7:30 a.m., and that was very successful. Later that day, we had the 40th annual fireman's competition. Chief Drew did a great job with that. Very, very successful. Along with that was a Tunnel to Towers exhibit. Again, a remarkable exhibit. Expensive to bring in, but I think well worth it. On Sunday, we had the Gospel Fest. Madison took care of that and did a phenomenal job. He's an amazing singer, by the way. I didn't really realize that. Followed by the world's largest ice cream sundae on Sunday about 6 o'clock. So hopefully you had a chance to join us there. That was a lot of fun. The naturalization ceremony was phenomenal. We had 55 candidates that were naturalized over from 28 countries. Very good. We had a kid zone. That was, we've had a kid zone before down at Taylor Field, but this one was kind of ramped up. We had a number of other events. We had a petting zoo. We had the Clicks of Confidence, the horses. We had a number of water events, slides for the kids, and it looked like it was very well enjoyed by everyone that attended that. We sold lots of shirts. They're still available. If anyone didn't get a shirt, this is what it looked like. Ricky Evans, our local artist, does this for us. These shirts are still available. If you want to buy one, we started selling those earlier this year, and that was very successful. We had a number of local shops that helped us sell those as well, and that seemed to go very well as well. The traffic after the fireworks seemed to go really well. So again, good job, Chief, on that. Seemed to go well. We had a trolley this year over there at the elementary school, and that seemed to go well. We had a special parking for the vendors. We can't force them to use it, but we certainly encourage them to use it. And then we had over by the elementary school parking for all the guests, all the tourists. So all in all, we thought it was a successful event. Always things we can improve upon. I showed you the maps there. We're trying to get those maps out better and better. There's obviously maps and information in the Coast magazine that comes out the week prior, because the locations of the bathrooms is always a question. Do we have enough of them? Are they in the right place? Always good questions. We do what we can to minimize negative impact to the local businesses here. That's our last thing we're trying to do, is hurt their business. We try to minimize the number of generators that are on the site because they're just noisy, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. So bottom line, thank you again. We're already planning for next year. Next year is the 250th anniversary of July 4th, 1776, of course. So a lot of work going in there. So that's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
The Davidsons, are y'all speaking on the historic district? Ian and Barbara Davidson? Are y'all speaking on the historic? Okay. Mr. Jim Brown, did you want to speak on the historic district?
Yes.
Okay. And then Miss Sue Hodgen, did you want to speak on the historic or something else? No. Okay. So Miss Sue Hodgen then.
My name is Sue Hodgen. I live at 608 Cottage Point Way, and I'm the current chair of Southport's Planning Board. I am not, however, speaking for the Planning Board. My comments tonight are a melding of thoughts as one member of that board and a citizen of Southport. Sometimes I've seen accomplishments in my life when I've just kept my mouth shut. Tonight is not going to be one of those times. This past Monday morning, my application for reappointment to the Planning Board, where I've served several years, most of that time as chair, was thoroughly discussed and ultimately rejected, and there was not one reason given. One of the interview panel even had to recognize with an urging from Alderman Carroll, I did not say she was not qualified. No rational reason could be offered. Anyone who's not already seen it can watch any bit of reasoning fade and see, as was mentioned Monday morning, that my reappointment rejection was a setup, predetermined, a political retaliation, and that it smelled. It didn't pass the sniff test. Please note that not one other current board, committee, or commission member who applied for reappointment was rejected. Not one. If you didn't look through them, check those application packages, folks. Not one. And I'd note too that not once in Southport's history has a standing member of the planning board or its chair been removed from their seat. Obviously, it was meant to be a slap at me, a control, a gotcha, a punitive moment. But this whole round of appointments was also a slap to the whole of Southport. One of our aldermen used his Facebook page to solicit folks to call him if they were interested in being on a city board or commission, not to go to the city website for an application and apply. I sincerely hope it's not true, but one must admit this whiffs a bit of elected official involvement and cronyism.
Ma'am, I hate to stop you, but some people may be allergic to that. Please stop spraying stuff in the room.
Sure, I'll just say it instead. In truth, two of the three individuals that were appointed to the planning board Monday did not turn their applications in until the second round of solicitations. If these individuals stepped up, as Alderman Kelly stated, why did that step up not happen until the initial deadline had passed? It would have shown their understanding of deadlines, compliance with the posting, and a true desire to be part of helping the town to which they've moved. Spray. So, what may have caused antagonism of two of the interview panel so that they'd not include me in the recommendations? Was it that the liaison comment had been taken off the monthly planning board agenda starting in June? If so, let me explain to him, everyone else, and for the record. No board or commission in this town, to my knowledge, has ever put on its monthly agenda an item for liaison comments. Normally, a board inquires of a liaison from the audience if the board has a specific info inquiry. Our inclusion of it rather, was meant to be cooperation with the aldermen, a time for our liaison to give us any pertinent information from aldermen's discussion, any suggestions for our own subsequent discussions or action. After our May meeting, two different planning board members suggested it be stopped. Since no productive comments had been offered for several months, though we were all very appreciative of Mr. Lay's consistent compliments of the board's hard and effective work. I conferred with planner Mo Meehan, and she agreed that the elimination of the agenda item was in order. I sent a friendly text to Mr. Lay on June 16th before our meeting on the 19th and advised him of the change. In the interest of full transparency, let me read it. Good morning, Frank. I've asked Mo and Tori to remove your comments on the agenda for planning board meetings. Since it's likely that all seats at the table will soon be occupied, hope that's gone well, you can always let me know if there are comments specific to a shown subject that the Board of Aldermen would want brought out. Otherwise, we won't use and abuse you in that way. Call if you have questions or comments. Take care. That doesn't sound like an issue to me, and I didn't hear anything about it from Mr. Lay. So what else? Was it that our other liaison was told that she couldn't speak at a planning board meeting after she'd neglected to do so in public comment period, then wanted to interrupt the meeting later? We were following the agenda and protocol, just as public meetings are supposed to do. I didn't hear anything about that later from Ms. Kelly either, so I'm assuming that wasn't a game changer. Was it that Ms. Kelly's hands-down favorite, who she pushed from minute one for a seat on the planning board when the ETJ members were removed, was found to have presented false information on his application, claiming service on another municipality's planning board that never happened? Mr. Saldo confirmed that to be true in writing at my request to the full interview panel. Ms. Kelly didn't like that outcome, but with that disqualification, the panel, which included me and both current liaisons, reached consensus on our 3 selection recommendations for the alderman, and rightfully so, they did not include that gentleman. On the day of the alderman's meeting, January 9th, 3 hours before the meeting, when our recommendations were to be presented and voted on, I got a call from Liaison Lay telling me that he'd just gotten off the phone with the mayor, who said that one of our recommendations would not be named. The mayor said he wouldn't have her. He said, and Mr. Lay said he was quoting him, quote, "Not no, but hell no," unquote. And Mr. Lay told me, quote, "The votes are already there to stop it," unquote. It all had to do with a years-long corporate donation to the city, and the corporate had reconsidered it in its budget deliberations and declined to continue sending that money to Southport. This individual was an employee of that corporate. And this is credible information from more than one source in and outside City Hall. Succinctly put, the mayor used that corporate's payment cessation to retaliate against that applicant. They did not do what he wanted them to do, or as Mr. Spencer called it Monday, run with the agenda. The mayor called it a, quote, personnel issue, unquote, at the table on January 9th. It wasn't a personnel issue because we're not city employees, we are volunteers. It was his personal issue. He was called out on it, but that seat remained open with her appointment being voted down, sitting vacant until this application and appointment cycle spray. So please, folks, don't insult the citizenry further with yelling, flailing of arms, and saying phone calls were made, people showed up, this is lobbying, about Monday morning's comments. And then Alderman Davis saying, I've never known anything like that with calls to take place within this board since I've been on. Calls are made between the mayor and these board members. Always have been, always will be. Majority votes are predetermined. When discussion on me was wrapping up Monday morning, the mayor even slipped and said, and this is at the 1 hour, 56 minute mark in the tape, well, I'm not voting in this thing. So he already knew then that there'd be no split vote. The majority vote was predetermined, secure, a done deal. I was humbled and appreciative of my colleagues on the current planning board, a former board member and one citizen who was here to speak on another matter, who rendered public comment in support of my leadership abilities and administrative effectiveness. Shortly thereafter, once the appointments were being discussed, Mr. Spencer accused those commenters of lobbying, telling aldermen what to do, who to appoint. I want to address that from a planning board member's perspective, and if everyone at the table is actually telling the truth, they'll easily relate. Does anyone at the table, indeed anybody in this room, remember when we went through multiple planning board and aldermen's meetings with citizens coming one after another to tell us how we should help fight expansion of Indigo, to tell us what we should do about conditional zoning, to tell us what we should do about installation of a gate on a subdivision, to tell us what to do about signs, parking spaces, rights of way, and the sale of land, to expound their support for our police chief and the campaign for the PD's use of the old courthouse. And yes, there were social and media and phone calls to rally everyone to show up and show out for most of these actions. Would one correctly categorize all that as lobbying on behalf of those efforts? Absolutely yes. But now it's not okay for commenters to come in support of a volunteer colleague in several areas of town service for several years, whom they respect and wanted to see her remain in office in service with them. Alderman Spencer went off on those commenters and his fellow aldermen Monday morning, and once again, it was allowed to happen and continue until particular points had been made for public consumption. When individuals come in to speak about a topic or a person important to them, what under God's sun have we come to when our elected officials can go off a cliff about and at fellow citizens when their philosophies or agendas don't match their own? What does that say about the state of our city leadership? I think I can speak fairly confidently that had a member of the planning board lost all sense of decorum, professionalism, and yelled at a member of the public, or as was done at another alderman's meeting, point a finger and yell at a female community member, they'd have been removed from their seat. A proper thing to do, in my own opinion. There are other specific items on which I want to set the record straight tonight. Mayor, I think you'll like the first one, even coming from me. Well, maybe not all of it. Maybe not any. Well, let's just see. During Monday's public comment, Board Member Ashley spoke about the planning boards having requested to meet with the development attorney working with the city and East West for its waterway subdivision. He said that the mayor had refused to allow the council's work with the board. That is possibly not correct, and I want to speak to that this evening. It was not the mayor that told the planning board that it was not the best use of city resources for us to meet with that attorney. That was planner Mo Meehan and interim manager Nick Saldo. Noah, I'm sorry. I have here several copies of the April 23rd email exchange between myself and Mo, if anyone would like a copy. Beginning at around the 2-hour, 2-minute, 49-second mark on Monday's tape, the mayor stated that we had not requested legal services, that if we had requested it, we'd have gotten it. In Monday's meeting, the mayor stated that neither he nor this young man, pointing to Noah, denied the board legal access. So this email proves that statement to be false. Spray. As it's public record, I'm happy to read the written request. On April 23rd, I wrote to Mo and Noah and blind copied my vice chair. Good morning, folks. At our Planet PB meeting last Thursday, it was asked if we could have availability to the city development attorney who's been working on the agreement for Waterway, previously Indigo Phase 2. Have we reached out to Mr. Terrell to ask if he can attend the meeting either in person or for his convenience virtually? Perhaps I've missed a copy on an email from our liaison, Frank Lay, regarding our request, so I thought I'd do a follow-up myself. Please advise. That was at 12:16 on the 23rd. Mo responded at 4:36 that same day. Hi, Chair Hodgen. I contacted Noah earlier this week to consider inviting Mr. Terrell to the May 2nd workshop. After discussing the merits and challenges of inviting Mr. Terrell to the meeting, we realized it is not currently the best use of our resources. Please recognize that this decision was not made lightly. While the development agreement is a crucial part of the big picture for the project, it is not part of the recommendation for the subject CZ application. We're happy to forward any questions the planning board has about the agreement or the project to Mr. Terrell. However, I cannot guarantee how prompt his responses will be since he's been out of town since last week and will return later this week. I wrote her back at 6:29 that evening. Thank you for your response. I'm copying Kevin Lachlan as board vice chair, and since he was slated to be on the planning board's introductory discussion of Waterway April 15th, I admit to being confused. The Waterway rezoning application, along with the agreement, and the CZ text amendment are intertwined, as we all discussed and agreed last Thursday. Aren't our questions that relate to both the CZ text amendment, application, and agreement, including the uses and tables, all now part of public record, quote, worthy, unquote, of answers for us in our deliberations and for the public's interest? And if the planning board can submit questions to staff for forwarding to Mr. Terrell for his response, aren't we still expending city resources? Once again, the planning board has been given what is a big deal for Southport and pretty much told, quote, limit your questions, sign off on it, unquote. Frankly, and I hope you'll understand, for me and on behalf of my board, it's another gut punch. I've come here very willing to correct for the board Mr. Ashley's statement and hopefully get transparency about the identity of who did deny the planning board legal consult. In my final response to Mo, anyone can see that I stated it was a gut punch to the planning board to be told your concerns are not the best use of the city's money. What does this tell an all-volunteer board who has done tremendous work in support of staff and this city on extremely important topics when we see the amount spent on studies and the recommendations made from them, and see this board ultimately reject them and take a different, unadvised path? So now I'd ask you, Mr. Mayor, with all this brought on by a particular item, the email versus Monday statements, who's not telling the truth Monday about the legal access denial for the planning board? Was it Noah? As you said yourself, you leaned over and asked him if he did it, and he said he did not. Was it Mo writing the email with this language? Or was it actually you? Did you get offended that I and the board were in the alderman's business by wanting to ask questions about items in the development agreement that might affect the particulars of their CZ application and or the text amendment? Because all three items were intertwined and presented to the planning board that way. We weren't trying to steal anybody's thunder or derail what had to be done. We were doing our job to inquire. Indeed, even Attorney Terrell, our attorney from North Carolina, as you referred to him early in your term, acknowledged the planning board's prowess in bringing up the need for annexation scheduling language to be included in the agreement. So, did you tell Noah and Mo to not allow us access to Mr. Terrell or his office? If this is not addressed tonight, I'd appreciate hearing back from you, Noah, and/or Mo to get clarity and the truth on this. Addressing another statement that came out during discussion of my nomination, where it was stated that I had, quote, terse emails with Ms. Meehan. I do not know of the emails which Mo has apparently discussed with Aldermen. This saddens me, since I have been an open supporter of Mo's from her time as a member of the planning board with us to her through her progressively responsible positions. As was seen at Monday's meeting, individuals don't always agree. Our board does question staff about genesis of UDO items, comparison with other municipalities, interpretations, and processes. I believe that's what we're supposed to do. I don't believe that makes us or me terse. I sincerely wish that Mo would have come to me and talked with me as a mature professional about anything that bothered her. We've done that in the past, rather than creating a chasm and allowing it to be part of the destructive path taken Monday. Then, during my interview summary, it was said that I, quote, control the table at board meetings and don't let others speak. I chair a board full of very intelligent men, all experts in their own areas. I have learned so much from these individuals. That probably referred to my refusing to let Ms. Kelly interrupt that board meeting at her will. If that is controlling the table, guilty. I run meetings by the agenda and by Robert's rules, often with help from the aldermen, so does this group. If meetings are allowed to go off the rails and descend into berating and bedlam, well, I've already addressed that. Lastly, I want to provide a rebuttal to another label applied to me in this process, that I am divisive. There are few words in today's public discourse that sting quite as sharply as divisive. The label, when applied to a person, can suggest malicious intent, a willful penchant for sowing discord, or a disregard for unity and collective well-being. I'm now on the receiving end of such an accusation. As Alderman Davis said Monday that she was offended anyone would think that a majority of this board might be thought of collaborating on actions of votes. I am offended that an elected in this town would describe me in this manner. While that word initially felt like a reproach, I believe it's critical to respond with clarity, context, and conviction. This rebuttal is not an attempt to escalate conflict, nor is it a denial of the importance of unity. Rather, it's a reasoned defense of the value of open, sometimes difficult, dialogue, and an explanation of why disagreement, when rooted in sincerity and respect, can be a force for positive growth rather than division. The word divisive carries powerful connotations. To be divisive is, in common parlance, to create or deepen rifts between people or groups. It suggests a kind of antagonism, a tendency to pit sides against each other. But let's pause to consider. Does every disagreement, every challenge to prevailing wisdom truly constitute division? Or might there be a vital difference between productive conflict and destructive discord? Many of the greatest advances in human history have not come from unchallenged consensus, but from principled disagreement. The abolition of slavery, the extension of voting rights, the drive for civil rights, all were in their time accused of being divisive endeavors. History has shown us that what's labeled as divisive in one era may, in fact, be the necessary catalyst for justice and progress in the next. It's tempting to equate unity with agreement, to believe that harmony depends on everybody holding the same views. Yet diversity of thought is the lifeblood of any healthy society. When we engage in honest, reasoned disagreement, we don't weaken our community, we strengthen it. Through robust debate, we refine our ideas, expose assumptions to scrutiny, and arrive at more nuanced, resilient understandings. To accuse someone of divisiveness simply for expressing a contrary viewpoint risks silencing dissent and impoverishing collective discourse. If we're to grow individually and collectively, we must be willing to listen to uncomfortable truths, to entertain the possibility that our own perspectives are incomplete. Intentions matter. It's essential to distinguish between those who seek to disrupt for disruption's sake and those who raise challenging topics out of genuine concern for improvement. My contributions to any discussion are not motivated by a desire to fracture or alienate. Rather, they're rooted in commitment to honesty, transparency, and the pursuit of shared understanding. True divisiveness is marked by an intent to harm, to set people against each other for personal gain or out of animosity. I reject such motivations. I see this happening in Southport, but creating that division always comes to light. My intent with the positions in which I've been entrusted is to invite dialogue and foster an environment where differing perspectives can coexist and hopefully prove enriching to one another. There's grave danger in conflating unity with silence. History is replete with examples of societies that prioritize superficial harmony over honest confrontation, only to pay the price later. When voices are stifled in the name of unity, grievances fester beneath the surface, only to erupt in more damaging ways later on. Labeling someone as divisive can serve as a tool to deflect.
So all these people that are sitting here that actually have another topic, is there a time that you're going to get done with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you tell us what that is? Is it going to be this evening?
I can't tell you the time.
You're holding
I'll
up
be
all these
finished.
people. They've come here for a very important topic, and you're going on 40 minutes.
As is mine, Mr. Mayor. I'm almost done. Thank you, sir. It sidesteps the hard but necessary work of grappling with uncomfortable ideas. Instead of addressing the merits of my points, that label sought to undermine my credibility and motives. It takes courage to speak up when one's views are considered different or uncomfortable. When I raise issues or ask difficult questions, it's not because I relish conflict, but because I believe in the moral imperative of honesty, transparency, and the basic of doing the right thing. I believe in the value of free speech, a constitutional right. Words, especially in public, can have a powerful impact. If individuals have taken my comments as personal attacks, those are personal, narcissistic misunderstandings on their parts. Checking the record would show that I refer to city leadership in totality. Looking at this table now, I see 8 individuals, with the exception of city council. 8 individuals, not one. Anyone who knows me should know that if I meant one person, I would, and I will, call them out. Being called divisive may sting, but it's not in itself a condemnation. Even though it was meant to wound me, I won't accept that because I know it's not true. Now, we do have divisiveness in Southport, and it's grown in the last few years. Our town's very divided, and that was, in my own opinion, intentionally done. And now with election season starting, it'll ramp up. What term was used Monday? I think it was spinning the truth. And now, folks, we've become a laughingstock in Raleigh, in regional meetings, and in other municipalities. After Monday's action against me, I encourage everyone to watch how and with whom candidates align in the upcoming election. I learned long ago that if you watch someone long enough, they'll show you exactly who they are. Monday did that for a whole lot of people. Spray. In closing, I stand by my commitment to respectful, open, and transparent conversations and actions for the good of Southport. I invite others to do the same. Reject Mr. Spencer's expectation of forced consensus. Have difficult exchanges of ideas that just might lead to different understandings and the greater good for Southport. I think the State Port Pilot's editorial yesterday summed up very well the background to Monday's plot and my political hit. I thank them for their truthful and unafraid journalism. I hope the citizenry reads it, understands it, and takes it to heart in November. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
I believe that was all. Was there anybody else that? I'm sorry? Debbie Barnes? But you want for the historic, right? Okay, so yes, then come on up, Ms. Barnes.
I want to be thankful. And what I want to be thankful about is the things that took place here recently, the 4th of July. And I know Hugh has just gone through all that, but one of the things I want to do is say thank you, Hugh, for you and the team and all that you did. I also want to thank not only Tom Stanley and his team, Charles Drew and his team, and Todd Coring and their team for the pre-work that had to be done and the daily activity that they had to do. And I could go into some of the others, but Hugh's already addressed those. But this event was amazing. You wouldn't believe how many people that I ran into, not with my car, Todd, but just talking to about this town and how beautiful it is and how clean it was. We don't want to underestimate that effort because it takes effort. So thank you to all of you who were involved. The other thing I want to do today is to say that I have an idea. You may not like it. That's okay. But it has to do with safety. I think the boards over the past several years have shown that they're very focused on safety, whether it's the four-way stops on Atlantic, the one-way street on Short, whether it's the stop signs and the bumper things that you have to roll over. I forget what you call them. I'm old, okay, CRS. But on both Park and Stewart, and there's so many others that have occurred. The other one I'd like you to think about, I love the pedestrian walkways. I think they're really good. But what I also think is that there is times, I know for me, pulling out of West onto Howe, it's very hard sometimes to see those pedestrians or to see them when I'm wanting to make a turn in. I'm not going to ask you to give up a parking place, heaven forbid, no. But what I would ask is maybe you change it to something like golf cart, bicycle, I don't know, motorcycle, whatever, but somehow open the visibility right there at the crosswalks. That's my suggestion, and I'm done. Thank you.
And ma'am, you've left your contact information. No, with the clerk, if you would do that, but I know the chief just wrote down your comments, so he'll get back to you. Madam Clerk, is that it?
I believe that's all. Is there anybody else?
Okay.
Ms. Spencer, you want to speak on the historic? Okay, they're going to do that at public comment for the public hearing. You have something else? Okay, sure, come on up then.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Spencer. I live at 410 West Brunswick Street. I know there's no East Brunswick, but I've always called it West Brunswick. I live in the house that my parents bought in 1949. And I'll talk about the historic district. But recently, the city has removed the street light, which was opposite on the water side of Brunswick Street in front of my house, and replaced it with nothing. There is a new street light, I believe, up the street by the Creech's house on the corner of, at the corner of Brunswick and Short Street. And I believe there's another one down at the other end where Yacht Basin Drive comes in. But it's very dark in front of my house at night, except for the moon. It's been kind of nice the last few nights, but it is rather dark there. And it was always been my understanding that streetlights were to be every 300 feet within the city limits. That may or may not be true, but I would surely appreciate something being done down there. And I agree with Mrs. Barnes that something needs to be done at West Street's intersection with Howe Street. It's awful. You can't, between the pedestrians and the planters, and cars parked on in front of the bank and in front of the shops there, you cannot see to get out. I've had near collisions on more than one occasion, and something really needs to be done. And perhaps it's time for us to think about a street light, a stoplight there. And as I said, I'll talk about this in a minute. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. The manager's taking down your comments again. Did I say mayor? Oh, okay. Okay. Tori, are we done?
I believe that's all I have. Anybody else?
Okay.
That's it.
I will entertain a motion to close public comment, but I know that all of you have, most of you have come here for one particular topic. And so I'm not going to ask you to stay, but if you have the opportunity to watch the recording of this towards the end, when we make comments, you will hear comments about 5 potential issues that could have cost the city high dollars in legal fees and lawsuits that will go along with one of the conversations we just had and sat through. So if you want to hear about that, just look at the recording later on. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. It passes unanimously. I will then entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Is a motion, is there a second to the motion? Is a motion and a second, is there any comment? Not hearing any, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second to that? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of the approval of the consent agenda, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. On the consent agenda, there's meeting notes on it, and there's another one for the EMS franchise. That might catch somebody by, what is that about? Because I thought we had done that, and what I didn't realize is we have to do it every year. So last year's all the discussion about the franchise and how we operate, we the cities, EMS operate with the Brunswick County. It's just the same document. We're just renewing it, that's all. So the next agenda item is a public hearing on the local historic district overlay. I'm sorry. I entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the local historic district.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation about that? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Public hearing is now open. Mo, are you going to give us a little brief summary then, ma'am? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Aldermen. Tonight's public hearing is for case number ZMA 2502, which is a zoning map amendment to establish the Southport Local Historic District overlay. And prior to any changes to our zoning map, we have to hold a duly advertised public hearing. This evening, the Historic Preservation Commission Chair Charles Drew will be giving a short presentation on the history of the commission itself and an overview of the district and standards. And Penny Tysinger is available, our Historic Preservation Planner, to review the process of designating a local historic district. And following the presentation, we will all be available for any questions that you may have. So I will invite Charles up at this point.
Good evening. My name is Charles Drew. I live at 112 Park Avenue, and I was appointed 3 years ago on the Historic Preservation Commission. And with that being said, I didn't know there was going to be this much work for a volunteer to do. I didn't know I would be standing here 3 years later with this, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening and give a history of the Historic Preservation Commission for this public hearing. An ad hoc committee of the Board of Aldermen completed a Historic Preservation Commission ordinance in September of 2022. They then interviewed and appointed the Historic Preservation Commissioners at the October 13th, 2022 meeting. Since that time, the members of this commission have worked very hard and long to establish rules of procedure, goals, and design standards and guidelines. This commission has met many hours, sometimes twice monthly, for consideration and debate about different topics. This evening is not the first time this local historic district has been talked about. There have been many meetings where the Historic Preservation Commission has been discussed at the Board of Aldermen and Planning Board meetings. Our commission meets monthly, and we held 2 very well-attended public forums with much public comment, ideas, and suggestions. Those comments were taken back to the commission and interwoven into the design standard guidelines that were presented to this board. Our public forums were advertised. A mass mailing was done to every resident in Southport through their utility bills and many other means of advertisement as well on social media, the website, and the newspaper. Tonight's public hearing has been well advertised with signs in the historic district and also other means of advertisement. A couple of points I want to make in the beginning of this. There are several properties in the city limits of Southport that are on the National Registry. The National Registry is a great program, but it comes with no protection. No guarantee. In 1980, Southport had a historic district boundary designated in the National Registry Program. However, that designation does not give the city of Southport or any other organization any regulatory standing. For example, the oldest known standing residential structure in Southport is the Walker Pike House, built in 1800. It is just a couple of lots over from where we are today. It is currently in the 1980 Historic District, but it has no protection. It could be demolished and a modernized block structure could be built back in its place as long as it met the requirements of the current UDO and zoning ordinance. Tonight, this historic overlay district would still not stop the owners from demolishing that building if they want to, but it would stall them for 365 days and give the commission time to work with the owner to show them how valuable the historic character of that house is to Southport. If the owner still decided to demolish the house after the Historic Preservation Commission worked with them, showing them the value of the historic character, he would then have to adhere to the Historic Preservation Commission guidelines in rebuilding a new structure. The commissioners that you appointed are a slate of individuals that care about Southport. We have gathered feedback, ideas, input, and discussion. We've had many citizens to participate in this process. They've emailed us, they have shown up at our meetings, they've given us feedback about what they liked about the design standards, what they did not like. At the public comment or the public input sessions that we had in this building that were publicized and that were live on social media, every comment that was made, we wrote it down, we took it back to the commission, and we looked at each comment and interwove those comments and those ideas in the design guidelines. So our commission realizes that Southport belongs to the people. This is your city. Now, tonight, this process has been attempted in Southport under previous administrations and has failed. And for the reason of failure, I'm not going to go into those, but the current commission has dedicated hours to educating our citizens as to why this does not need to fail this time. After talking to citizens and explaining the process that we have created, individuals have walked away with a different perspective each time. We realized we must have citizen input and buy-in so that this process does not fail in Southport again. The main meat of the Historic Preservation Commission is what I call the 3 P's of historic value: preserve, promote, and prevent. Number 1, we must preserve the heritage of Southport by protection. Number 2, we must promote conservation, education, and cultural enrichment. And number 3, we must prevent demolition, destruction, and the removal of historical character and significance. So this commission does not want to tell you, I want to say number 1 in this public hearing, the commission is not here to tell you what color to paint your house. That has been completely removed. There is no color standards in the commission. We are not trying to tell you you cannot use alternative building materials. We have put that in. We have tried our best to make sure that the documents we have prepared are to work with the citizens of this town. We've woven in consideration and compromise into these guidelines. The historic boundary line is the same as the 1980 boundary, with a few minor adjustments that were recommended by the State Historic Preservation Office. The changes that were made from the 1980 boundary, there were a few changes on Kingsley Drive. Brown Street was divided and we included the south side of the street. And then there was some places taken out in the yacht basin that was redrawn due to so many non-contributing structures. Unfortunately, today, I stand here and the yacht basin has so many structures that are non-contributing in areas now. It has already been altered and changed. That's what we're trying to prevent from happening. That's what we're trying to stop. But we had to redraw the line because the yacht basin has been allowed to be changed from what it was when I grew up, when Alderman Spencer grew up here. We don't have, Alderman Kelly, we don't have the working fish houses where you could go buy local seafood like they used to. Now, Potter's Seafood is still in the local boundary that's designed today, but those other places have been taken away. They're non-contributing. So the district has been tweaked. There was a reason for that with guidance from SHPO. Also, across the waterfront right here, we had went out with the district in 1980 to include Battery Island, but the state Office of Preservation told us we had to stop the district at the high water mark because we cannot go further than the city limits. Those are the only adjustments we've made to the 1980 district line. The Historic Preservation Commission has worked diligently for nearly 3 years to get to the point where we're at today. The guidelines are a living, breathing document. We studied extensively many cities and towns throughout North Carolina. We have studied and compared historic standards, some that were extreme and some that were too lenient. We did not copy and paste. We designed a standard that fits Southport. Southport, as you know, is a very unique city. There's no other city like it in North Carolina or the United States. There is a Southport, Maine. There is a Southport, Connecticut. I visited a Southport, Indiana, but they don't compare to Southport, North Carolina. There's a Southport, England. The Southport, North Carolina is unique. It is different. It is not a carbon copy of any other coastal city or community. It has unique character. It has history on every street corner. What other city do you know of has an Indian Trail tree? I don't know of any other. Southport, where the Cape Fear River, Intercoastal Waterway, and Atlantic Ocean meet. I wish the live oaks of the Grove or Franklin Square Park, as you know it today, could tell stories. You would hear some very good stories. And that is what we must preserve, promote, and protect for future generations. So, many have said it's too late. I refute that statement. It's not too late to protect what we have left. The reason people move here is the quaint coastal character and charm. We cannot lose that. It must be preserved. This commission has 7 members and 2 alternates. I would like for everybody that's on the Historic Preservation Commission to please stand. These are the commissioners that have worked. No, go ahead, stand. That have worked very hard and very diligently. And I think I saw is Rick Bakinas here? Rick, go ahead and stand because Rick started with us, but he's recently just went off the commission. But these commissioners are the ones that have worked for 3 years to get us where we are today. Out of these, 2 members live in the historic district, and 4 of these members are natives of Southport that were born and raised here. We have several other members that are very passionate about this city. And I went back as the chairman to our first meetings that we held, and I just want to give you a couple of quotes. Bonner Herring is here. He's a native of Southport, and this is what Bonner said at the first meeting. He said, "These guidelines need to be beneficial to property owners, not a burden." I wrote that down because that's what our commission's about. Jim McKee is here somewhere. Raise your hand, Jim. Jim is a local historian. He lives in the historic district. He said, "The historical character of Southport must be preserved, and this commission needs to define that." And then I don't see Joanne here tonight, but Joanne Wesson said, "Let's keep this simple and promote historical character of Southport." We're not trying to regulate you to death. That's not what we're trying to do. The Historic Preservation Commission commissioners that you see have volunteered many hours to get where we are this evening. And I myself, as chairman, want to give y'all a hand. And maybe during the public hearing, you'll be hearing from some of them and they can be seated. In closing, we're not here to regulate and restrict. We're really here collectively to preserve, to promote, and to prevent demolition of the Southport charm and character. I can't understand why anybody would be against what we're trying to do. You may ask, is everything in the design standards or the boundary perfect? No, it's not. It will have to be amended. It will have to be revised. However, the future of Southport depends on getting this overlay district approved and this commission moving forward to protect what we still have in Southport. So if you're inside of the boundary, I just want you to understand you'll still be held to the standard UDO, building regulations, and other codes. This overlay will only add a layer of protection for historic purposes. I urge each of you on the board to vote for this overlay district. The Historic Preservation Commission has completed the task that we were given by the Board of Aldermen. We have completed the design standards. We have completed the rules and procedures, and the public has been involved. The planning board has been involved and reviewed and approved these standards and this designation. So the future of Southport is in your hands tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. Chairman Drew did a wonderful job, so I have very little to add to this. Again, we are here for questions and answers. To bring it back a little bit to why we're here, and because there are so many people here, I love a good full room and an opportunity to talk and to educate. So I might want to back up a little bit and explain this 3-year process a little bit. So we are here to create the HPC, or the Historic Preservation Commission, and that began, as he said, in 2022. Then from 22 to 23, actually all the way up into 2025, various groups have been working on the design standards, the local designation report, and the overlay map. I will say that we did hire a consultant to come in and help the board with this, but the board did do a lot of review and input into this to make it unique to Southport. The state then comes in and looks at what we do, and the state, he referred to it as SHPO, is the State Historic Preservation Office. And they gave us some great feedback. They said we did a great job at looking at it and offered some suggestions. They did tell us, as Chairman Drew mentioned, to pull it back within the city limits. But these are living documents. So this is our attempt at presenting to you what we feel is best for us at this time. Will it stay the same? No. Could the boundaries change? Yes. And so we will take feedback as we process and go through this and change it as it is needed. The Historic Preservation Commission at their June 4th meeting did make final recommendations on what I call the 3 areas that we're asking you to look at. 1 is the design standards, 2 is the local designation report, and 3, which is contained within the designation report, is the overlay zoning map.
The planning board unanimously recommended it June 19th, and that brings us here tonight. So while tonight we are focusing on the element of the zoning overlay map, and again, I want to make sure that since so much public is here, your basic zoning still applies to your property. So if you wanted to add on, if you could add on today, you can add on after this is adopted. Always will building codes apply, always will your zoning apply. This is if you had a superimposed area over it that helps with the preservation of the historic element. It deals with the public views of property and the exteriors of the property. We're not coming inside of the house unless they asked us to. The comp plan that you are currently working on and the one we have now, one of the top things that this community wants is preservation of their historic area for multiple reasons. It is also moving forward in your current 50/50 plan that you're about to process and get out for publication for folks. So thank you to the previous boards and thank you to this board for jumping on that process. As you saw, it's not been a short process. And we hope that you will move forward with the adoption of this and we can get into business of working and educating folks and protect and preserve what we have here that's so special to us in Southport. We're here to answer any questions after the public hearing that any that the board may have. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Charles, are you ready for people to come up and start speaking? Madam Clerk?
Miss Debbie Barnes?
So Debbie Barnes, 425 West Street, and I would be in the overlay district. My home is not historical, but I am glad to live in this village and to be part of it. And to the point of what this committee's been doing is nothing short but amazing. The document, the thoroughness, I enjoyed reading it, believe it or not. It was great, Charles. You and the team, it was really, really good. If no one's read it, you need to. I do believe that we need to have a historical preservation, but I do have questions and I have things that I would like to get clarity or maybe some change of perspective on. One, as someone who's in there in the overlay district, at this point, I'm making an assumption, but you know what that assume means. So I'm going to ask it. Are we grandfathered so that if we are not in compliance in what's in these rules, we're not going to be expected to make any changes? And that's what I want to make sure of. And if we have things that we use, so for example, you'll need to correct the document that describes our house. The document says that we are painted, our house has painted wooden shake siding. That is vinyl siding. And in the document, it says vinyl siding is not acceptable. It's not appropriate. Let me put it that way, since that's the thing. I personally like what we have. It looks like cedar shakes or whatever, always has. It's over 20 years old now. It's holding strong. To say it's not appropriate numerous times in the document gives me a little bit of concern in case I need to do replacements or even to change it. So I got a little concerned with that one. That's also money. So I know you don't want to make this a hardship. So Bonner, I really appreciated your comment. But if I had to make some changes like that, that would be extremely hard on us financially. And I just don't think that's acceptable. So I got to make sure there's some balance here, okay? There are things such as discussed in there again, like on porches. We have screen porches, but our porches, those screen porches, are easy breeze. So those easy breeze windows have vinyl. And in the winter, those vinyl covers get closed, or if there's just a good hard rain, it keeps the porch dry. Anybody that's been on my porch, and if you haven't, this is not open to the public, but to the board and to the committee. If you want to come sit on my porch, you'll see, I think it's pretty nice. But we close those, and I think it's appropriate, but your document would lead someone to think maybe it isn't. The other part is things such as hurricane shutters. We have, it talks a lot about having wood shutters. Oh, we got metal. I'm lazy, and I have shutters where I can hit a switch and they come rolling down. Now, we can use those shutters to help us, of course, in the hurricanes, protect us, but we also use them in the winter sometimes just to close off a little bit of the porch that keeps our heaters good that are in there. So if you're saying wood shutters, then my metal shutters are not being covered there. The other things such as decorativeness. My husband is awesome. Okay, don't tell him I said that. But he cut out these emblems of sailboats. I mean, it's like sailboats in our shutters, if you've ever seen them. They're beautiful. He's done a dolphin for somebody else, and they're just beautiful. So is something like that going to be considered not appropriate in the future? I have another friend, and I know they're here. And if I'm saying something, they were going to say, don't hate me. But they had a heat and air unit that went out, like on just before the 4th. Now, that heat and air unit, they couldn't get it fixed right away. And it looks like I'm not sure what they're going to have to do, but they had, I think they had a unit or something they put up. That would not be acceptable in this. So we've got to have some ability for common sense to take over about how long that has to be to say, get a unit just to survive. So the unit is something that you can go to the store and get, and you may only need it temporarily. And having to go, and it might take 10 days to get something approved or more, that's not good. So we've got to have some other wording in there or something to deal with those things. I really do believe having this is good. But I also believe having a process for the future. I trust these people who did this. And I think they'll go back, and I think they'll maybe work on some of this, clean it up, so that we're not adhering to having this hanging over our heads. But if things don't work out, we need to make sure there's a really good process in place that the people who are in the overlay district always has a voice on what's in this and how it's being managed. Because someone else could come along and just get a real ego trip, right? So we really need to make sure that we keep that going. And I want to say, shame on me, because I did not know about all the work this group was doing. I didn't go to any meetings. I didn't know about them. I've been involved in other things in my life and I wasn't keeping up. So even my utility bills, I think you said it was in utility bills. Well, mine are automated. You know, I don't get a paper copy or anything. And until just a little while ago, when Bonnie told me, I didn't know you could sign up to get a notice from them about things that might be there. So shame on me that I didn't know sooner, or I would have addressed these things with you earlier. But I do agree we need to do it. But I do think there are some things I'd like to see so that it's not going to be a hardship. Thank you. And way to go.
So Chief Drew, I have a question for you. And that is a lot of interesting points were just brought up. Do you want to try to address them now or how do you want to do it?
However you want me to do it, sir.
I think that if you address them now, everybody could hear them. It may take a little longer, but it'd also be on the tape so everybody will know the answer.
This is a great opportunity for education. So thank you for your comments, Debbie. Are we grandfathered? Are we expected to make changes to conform? No, we're going forward. If you have vinyl, you're allowed to put vinyl back. That is already there in the process. And we will get a correction made on your description of your house. And Mo, if I say something wrong, please correct me because you know these, better, or any of the commission, if you want to chime in. The vinyl windows, your house already has vinyl windows. So like I said, we're not going backwards. We're moving forward. It's already documented. It's already there. We're not going to require you to put something else in besides that.
Did you actually put that in writing?
How are we going to answer that?
Maybe in an overarching area where it says if there's something that's already there, it can be replaced with like materials.
So you're asking if we could have like a statement in the document stating that we're not going to retroactively ask you to go back to. Actually, yes. If that is already in the document. Yes, ma'am. Yes. That was one of the biggest, that was brought up many, many times, and we made sure, and the commission rather made sure that if you have existing vinyl, that you can replace it with the vinyl now, if necessary. Yes. Okay. All right.
And another thing is that, and Mo, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at streetscape. We're not looking at side yards, your backyard. We're looking at streetscape. That's what we're trying to keep that in mind. Of course, I know your house is unique. I understand that. Right. And I didn't catch, I wrote it down, the decorativeness, that's not going to, right. And the AC unit, what was, somebody put a window unit in? Right. And I think that it states that when, right. So does that answer your questions? Okay.
Chief, would,
Are we saying that somebody new can't put one there? Yeah, we can't say that.
Here comes the fancy.
Yeah.
No, sir. This is not directed at you, but this is for educational purposes and for everyone. So the Historic Preservation Commission is a quasi judicial board. And for those who may know, but those who may not, that's kind of like a court. So it's not a legislative process. For us to say whether you can or can't do something is just doing an injustice to you. Anything you propose on your individual properties would have to be, we can talk standards, we can talk generalities, but your specifics would have to be done at the formal hearing before the commission, where you're given an opportunity for fairness and equalness, and where you present evidence and testimony from people with standing to, and then they will take all those things into consideration and make a decision. So it's hard to say one section of this standard, will it apply, will it not apply? They look at everything that you're trying to do and then make a cohesive decision to be able to get it. So that's part of my job, is to always to remind the commission that, you know, we can't have ex parte communication. In other words, we can't talk about it outside of the hearing. We can't make promises of what will or will not happen. Everything has to happen in that hearing. If that makes sense.
Chief, will this document eventually have a word search on it? Are we working that? So if somebody wants to find out what's the story on vinyl, they don't have to look through 500 pages to find it?
It should be yes, it should be on Unicode, so it will be, yeah,
Okay.
you'll be able to search it. Yes.
Thank you.
In the document, is there a word, a definition of appropriateness? Yes.
And I will just say now again, and I did not mention this in my presentation, all of these documents are online and have been on our website. And you can come by the office, we can discuss them, we can talk about it. And if you need a hard copy, we can provide you one there as well. So when I say that, that's the designation report, the standards, and the overlay map.
Well, I think the last question that the gentleman had was, is there a definition of appropriateness?
Yes, it is defined. So when an individual in the overlay district is going to do something, they're going to have to apply for a certificate of appropriateness. And that will be brought before the commission. And like Penny said, it's a quasi judicial board. It's going to be a court hearing that's going to be presented. You're going to present the facts. So each of these situations is going to be on a case by case scenario. The guidelines are going to guide the commission. And just like Debbie said, I mean, we're not going to always be there. I'm not going to always be there. You know, these commissioners that are here are not going to always be. There's going to be other people that are going to be there serving. And I understand that. But you have legislative control by your board members who represent you and who they put on the commission. So that's your alternative of who they appoint to the commission.
And can I also say, I'm just going to interject, that there is an appeals process. This isn't an absolute, just like there's an appeals process for the planning board. The Board of Adjustment serves as an appeals process. So I think it's important to know that as well.
Madam Clerk?
I wanted to make a comment too.
Go.
On the appropriateness, this gets back to the process itself. What triggers going to the commission, the Historic Preservation Commission? You apply for a change and planning says, no, we don't think so. And you then you apply to have the HPC hear it, or what?
So there are proposed works, there's a minor certificate of appropriateness or a major certificate of appropriateness, depending on the level of change that you are proposing, and that is all outlined in the standards. So if it's just normal maintenance, just some repairs, the painting or putting in one or two plants in your yard, those types of things don't require it. Some smaller things for a minor is just a removal of a fence, or that would be a minor. So that's going to be administrative and staff will take care of that. So removal of mature trees or walkways, that triggers a major. So that would then go to the Historic Preservation Commission for a major. Yes, and the tree permit is free. So, this is another, yes, there's just definitely an extra step.
I have another question. On like for like, replacement of siding, what about aluminum siding? What about, asbestos?
Asbestos was not specifically mentioned, but if you go to standard 2.29, it specifically says the use of vinyl or aluminum siding is not permitted. Where vinyl or aluminum siding exists, it can be maintained and replaced. So that is how that is.
So by the fact that, aluminum siding and asbestos are not mentioned, that means they can't be used.
Aluminum is specifically mentioned. Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, can
I'm sorry. You can't replace asbestos now. So once it's gone, it's gone. You can't put that back.
so for clarification, let's pretend I have shutters on my house in the historic district. They're purple right now. I want to paint them. I don't have to contact anybody to paint my shutters, correct? All right. They're wood right now. I want to put metal shutters up that look like the wood, but they're metal. I think for my insurance purposes, it would help me. Am I allowed to do that?
You would I think that's probably have to be applied for. You would have to put in for a certificate of appropriateness for that.
Okay.
Yes.
And then as far as the rest of the city UDO and all that, there's nothing else with the city UDO that then just becomes Historic Preservation Commission that I've got to go through for changing my shutters from wood to metal.
So again, as I mentioned in my presentation, nothing changes from your other levels of regulation that are on your property. So if it's something perhaps that triggers a building permit, you would still get a building permit. Doesn't apply whether it's in the historic district or not. Same with asbestos. If you touch asbestos, you can cover it by building code, but once you touch it, then you're brought under a whole different standard under the building code to have to remove it. That's not implied by the Historic Commission. That's just, we're going to monitor it closely and work in conjunction with the Building Inspection Department, who will have regulation over that.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, did you sign up, sir? Sir, did you sign up? We're going to need to get to the people who signed up first. Ma'am?
Jim Todd.
All right. Thanks for the time. I'm Jim Todd. My wife and I, Peggy, we just moved here 4 years ago. So most of you guys here have probably forgotten more than we'll ever know about Southport. So there's one disclaimer. We do live at 209 Short Street. And if you're not sure, I'll say it this way. I know what you did last summer. So I got that, right? And then I had a couple of comments, and another disclaimer here is I've spent all of about 45 minutes going through the rules. And then I hear you get up here and talk about 3 years, and I see the folks standing up and things like that. And I'm like, I hope I really say something brilliant as I walk up here. And as I'm standing here, I realize I'm not going to have a lot of great things to say. But I do have a comment. So everything that you said, I thought was really good. Part of the reason we moved down here is because of Southport, because of the historical district, because I know what you did last summer. And we love it. When we redesigned the house, we did our best to do that. We own another house at 424 West West. I'm not even sure if that's in the zone, but we just renovated the front porch. And for those of you who've seen it, we purposely did it to make it look maybe like old Southport was. So I'm totally for all these things that were there. The major works, I think, are outstanding as I've gone through it. And again, I have 45 minutes of work behind me on this one, not 3 years. So, but then I went through the minor ones, and I do have a couple questions that kind of came up, I think, from Debbie and Buddy and from other people that brought it up. By the way, don't change your front porch. So that's very important as well. I've wasted a lot of my last 4 years on that front porch, and I plan to do it again. So, on the minor side of it, there's 22 of them that are in there. And that does get a little concerning. The only thing that would be worse than having not enough regulation is probably too much. And I don't think we have, because I think we've spent the time, and the folks here certainly know more than I do about that. But then as I read a couple of them, and I think you said on the front street and the view of where you would see, I saw a couple of the regulations that said also in the side and the back about removing gardens, about damaged trees and things like that. So that comes to a question of what ultimately happened and who has the authority. So if something were to happen where it says you cannot remove a diseased or damaged tree in the side or backyard, so that's not visible. So if a storm comes through and the tree is damaged and the bush is damaged, and I say I need to pull it out, number one, do I need to get approval for that? I think the answer is yes, which in of itself isn't a bad thing. And then what if somebody comes out and says, we don't think it's damaged, or it's we don't want to take it out, or whatever that case may be. So I'm not sure what the process would be for that. Or does the board come out and say, yeah, it's not damaged enough, we think you need to keep it and it stays. So minor issue here. Once again, I started with my disclaimer. I'm probably not going to say anything brilliant, but 22 minor, I think they're called COAs. I just want to make sure that number one, we're not overdoing that. And number two is, what's the resolution process if homeowner and the folks that come out and take a look at it disagree? Thanks.
You're good. So you threw a couple of things in there, and so you have to look at them individually. So if it's a storm, emergencies are treated differently. So permits are kind of waived at that point. So please understand in emergencies that it's a different process. Second, tree removal requirements are already on your property, whether it's with the historic. When you don't agree with the staff person, the regular appeal process happens, which is you can take that to the Board of Adjustment. We do try to use arborists if we come to a point of disagreement. We have a fabulous forestry committee that has very expertise on that, and Scott Lynn comes out, and we call on him quite frequently to help make determinations. From experience on tree removal permits, there are really not a lot of disagreement. When you get the tree company involved, when you get an arborist involved, when you get Scott Lynn involved with the forestry committee and all, usually resolution is made positively.
Mr. Rich Bandera.
Hi, I'm Rich Bandera. I live at 409 North Burrington Ave. On the historic guidelines, I guess I've got 4 topics I'd like to talk about, but I disagree with the yacht basin being excluded out of the overlay. I've worked in all different coastal towns, from the Truman Annex in Key West to Rockport, Maine. And although the buildings are not fish houses or ice houses any longer, adaptive reuse of structures, provided they maintain the general form of what they have, in the past. And I mean, I think it's very much a contributing thing. I think when you come from the water to the yacht basin, maybe not along the street edge. I mean, I've been here about 24 years. It's pretty consistent. And I've been here long enough to have gone to the ice houses and the fish houses and that kind of thing. So at that time, there was Charlie Perry's, I think the Potters owned the shrimp house, where Fishy Fishy is. And at that, around the time I got here, there was a lot of buildings in the center where the parking lot was. There was a motel, there was the old Mr. P's, there was a Russ Ferris's boathouse, and all of those were torn down, and there was a big to-do about rebuilding in that center section. And so saying all that, to see all that stuff go away and to not protect what we have, I think I would personally, this is my opinion, is that it should be part of the overlay. Without that overlay, and I'll bring this up at a different meeting, but the conditional zoning guidelines that just were approved have no dimensional requirements to them. And that could be used not only where those older structures are, but in the entire parking lot. So I don't want to get into that whole thing tonight, but I would respectfully disagree with that opinion on that. The second point is I think some of the guidelines are a little bit excessive. The previous speaker talked about the minor certificate of appropriateness. And there's one specific item that I kind of gravitated towards, and it's under the site and setting portion of that. And what it says is that you cannot plant a tree, you can't put plantings in a non-visible rear yard, a part of the site that nobody can see other than you. And you need to get that certificate of appropriateness. It's on page 150. So I think could be, that's a little excessive in my mind. The other one, page 155, the timing of the certificate of appropriateness. They try to do their best, staff tries to do their best to get it out and approved, but they have 180 days to issue it, which is 6 months by the time you apply, by the time they have to technically reply back to you. So I think that's also just way over the top. And the last item, and I brought this up, and they're going to get sick of me bringing this up, but on page 179, there's the local historic district that's been identified by the yellow line in the mapping. And on this other map, there's an amended area that extends up to Leonard Street. And it's considered a historic overlay amendment. And I've questioned that language of an amendment from back in December to in January, in April of the minutes that are in your package. Nobody's gotten back to me on what is the definition of what that means? Does that mean that you can expand the overlay into that area? Because if it doesn't, that's all I'm asking. Does it mean that? And I've never got an answer on that. And I would assume that's what it does mean, but I'd like it kind of spelled out clearly in the guidelines, because it would impact where I live. That's pretty much it. So those are I think, big picture, I think it's a great job what they've done. I think these critiques, I guess, are fairly minor. So thank you.
If you don't think there's a need for a response for everyone, but eventually I would like to get back to Mr. Bandera or something.
Line that he's talking about in the amended area, nothing can be extended without the Board of Aldermen's approval. I mean, the overlay district cannot be moved unless the State Historic Preservation Office approves it, and the Board of Aldermen would have to approve it. That's correct?
And the line that I believe you're speaking of, it was a study limit that was done in 2010 for the National Register boundary that they were considering, but it never went through. So that's what that extra boundary is that you'll see. Even on the historic preservation GIS layers have that on there, but it was only a true study. It never went anywhere. We don't even have a full listing of all of those properties. So
Well,
that's what
why do we have the line then?
That was a study area that was
I understand that, but
proposed.
they didn't do it. We don't have a line anyplace else. My concern is, as has been brought up numbers of times, everybody trusts the people that are sitting in this room today. But
Yes, sir.
we've had places and times when that trust was not as secure.
Mhm.
And so if the line doesn't mean anything and it could be interpreted later on to mean something, unless you have explicit language in there, it says, we wrote this line in there, but it doesn't mean anything because nobody ever did anything on it. That's a different story. So I'm concerned about that as well.
Right. And so what we are proposing in this overlay does not include any of those lines. It is specifically just the district itself.
Can we remove those so that way someone doesn't interpret it later?
Yes. I mean, it's not documented on any maps that have been presented forward for adoption.
Okay, well, maybe I misunderstood what Mr. Bandera was referring to then.
There were some earlier maps that we were using that included because the only mapping we had at the time was the National Register mapping that the state had put together. So those study boundaries are automatically on their lists, on their maps.
Is there a way that we can just indicate in some manner, shape, or form that this is really not relevant to what we're talking about now? Because obviously it's a concern. We need to make that concern go away if possible.
It's not part of the overlay district in any way.
Okay.
So the documents that we have that eventually we would vote on, I assume next month, do not have the yellow line on them.
That's correct.
I see on page 171 of our packet, page 37 of the historic district, there's a map that has a green outline that says Southport Historic District Boundary Amendment. Is that perhaps?
That's what he's speaking of. And we can update that map. Now that we have our updated maps, we will remove that one and put the one that is official in there.
Okay, thank you. I think that would solve that.
And the other question,
One thing I just want to clarify, when we don't want to remove where that study was there for historical purposes.
well, then you can
So
put it on another map and another page.
We
and
can make
you
it
can
separate.
highlight it if you
Yeah.
want to host historical district. But if it's going to be on something we're going to vote on and it's in the body of the document,
It just will
it could
show
be
it.
interpreted by the next group of people to mean something.
Right.
And that's important. I do have another question about Mr. Bandera. Do we actually have language that says you can't plant trees in your backyard?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure what he was referring to.
I'm gonna have to look that one up.
And Mayor, may I just say, and we will stay here as long as we need, but to me, the public hearing is to do the overlay of the zoning map. Are we for this concept? Do we want to have a historic district? And if we do we want to use the choice which we had decided, which was overlay? The individual properties and how it applies is really best done more on a one-on-one and an educational setting. And that's what, even if we had a forum where we brought people together and said, come ask all your design standard questions, just in general, I think that would be an appropriate time to do that.
If we're going to vote on something that's going to be the policy of this city, and it's going to go on for the next 100 years, the document has to be as correct as possible. If there's language in there that says, and I don't know the language because I haven't studied it as intensely as you have, that says I can't plant a plant someplace on my property, my property, not the right of way,
Right.
on the property, then we need to look at that language and if that's in the document that's sitting here under my arm, I'm not sure that's the most for me. I'm only talking for me. I'm not sure that's the most appropriate thing where we're getting down to the level of you can't plant a rose bush someplace because somebody decided that they're going to do a super HOA here. That's my concern.
And
It is on page 149. It is, let's see. It was, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth item down, removal or planting of trees in rear and non-visible side yards requires a minor COA.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
While we're
So-
looking it through, the purpose of this whole thing is to make this as good as possible. So I'm going to ask you to keep the rumbling down a little bit.
And Mayor and board, it's just like I said, this is a living, breathing document. And I said in my statement, this is not perfect. So that needs to be struck. That needs to be removed.
And that's why we're here.
That's right.
So
I mean,
we're here for public comment. This
that's-
is not a gotcha.
That's
This is
right.
not, nothing like that.
Certainly.
But if they want us, if you want us to vote on this next month, we got to find as many of these things as we
Right,
can. We're not
right.
going to be perfect. And
that's-
then we can
that's what we're
address
here
them later
for.
on.
Yes, sir. That's what we're here for. I will address Mr. Bandera's page 155, timing of a certificate of appropriateness. That 180 days is not for staff to get back to you. That is for the whole process, 180 days for staff, for you to do your certificate, you to present to the commission, for them to be able to get back to you. It has to be done within 180 days. A ruling has to be done by the commission. Yeah.
And Chief Drew, that actually comes from statute. So the General
Right.
General
That's-
Assembly
that is
set that
right.
max time frame, and it's from the date from when it's filed. The board must make a decision.
Must
or the
make a
commission.
decision by that time. It's not saying that it's going to take that long. It's just that from the general statutes, it gives the commission a guideline that we can't prolong things. We can't make you wait a year or make you wait 9 months or so. I don't know if it can be shortened by the general statute. I mean, that may be a Brady question.
Madam Clerk, next person.
Okay, now Mr. Jim Brown, you can come on up.
This is what we went through 2003, 2004, 2005.
Mr. Barnes, we appreciate that, but it's actually someone else's turn to speak right now. Mr. Jim, you have the floor.
Mayor, board members, I'm Jim Brown. I own a house at 114 South House Street. That's in the historical district. It's on the National Registry as Thompson Williamson House, circa 1873. I've owned the house since 1983. It's been a number of businesses. I actually have lived here 50 years. I served on the Board of Aldermen for 24 years. 20 years ago, we considered what you're considering tonight, and we didn't pass it. It wasn't the right time. Now, in my opinion, it's the right time. We need to preserve the character of our historical district. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jean Johnson?
The good news is a lot of what I was going to say has been said, so I'm not going to repeat it just to be heard, but to amplify some of that. I think one, super excited about the principles. I've had the luxury. So Jeannie Johnson, sorry, 232 East Moore, might be a little controversial. I'm one of the people that moved a house, but with the intent to honor the charm that drew us here in 2015 and is going to keep us here when I get the luxury of retiring with my husband. A couple things is really who isn't getting clarity. Like Debbie, I'm going to say shame on me. Had no idea this has been going on this long and pay attention to the mail and still missed it. So we did get the notice of this public hearing and have been reading the document and asking a lot of the clarifying questions and also enjoyed reading it and the history. So that was great. But I think getting clarity about who's included and who's not and how that's going to be governed going forward. Also echo Rich's comment about the yacht basin. Technically, it's not like it was, but it's pretty close. And is it something we want to preserve today? So let's not let a few lines and get back to those principles. I think the ongoing governance about what are the new standards and new interpretations. I think that table of the minor and major is great. I think the process flow is great. It's a long list of minors. So I think you've heard that. So check, check. And I think more about the governance of that. When do those get publicized? What's the process for the residents to have a voice to make sure we really understand? Because you're not going to always have a big public hearing on all these pieces. So what is that process for notifications that we know people are receiving it? I don't know how it was missed. It sounds like y'all did everything. I work in the communication business a lot, and shit gets missed. So sorry for the language. And then I think one of the things that I would love to do, again, I'm at Atlantic and Moore. What are some of the additional actions that the city can do to partner? Right now, we're talking about the burden on the residencies. But one of the things I really liked, I liked the clarity in the principles. But I think one of the things that really got my attention was, and especially with the ongoing work around utility wires, burying them, the really big boxes that are on really prominent places. One of the things in the standards was utility wires, including power, telephone, and cable, should be placed underground whenever substantial construction takes place. Above ground utility boxes, fixtures, and equipment should be in inconspicuous locations and should be screened from view. I also have a Tupperware cover in front of my house because we've got some old plumbing and we don't want to leave it. And the ability to plant something to hide it is a restriction. So I think this is one where the city and the residents have some work to do. The street is terrible. Love the treescape, but the street is terrible. There's grass all over the place. So my story is if we're going to do this, let's go all in and really make all the pieces work. So happy to share part of the burden to preserve our history. But I think there's a lot of what's in here that is the city's partnership that we need to make sure is proportionate to what we're asking the residents to do. So just ask that to be considered as well. Thank you.
Mr. Tal West.
I'm Tal West, live at 6159 River Sound Circle. I am a member of the Historic Preservation Committee. I did move to Southport in 2019, so I'm one of the younger members on the board as far as longevity. But one of the things that brought me to Southport, I was born and raised in Charlotte. So as we know, it's the biggest city in the state, biggest in the Carolinas, beautiful 21st century city with a lot of steel and glass skyscrapers. We didn't do a good job in Charlotte of preserving our history. Didn't have a lot of history, but history we had, we didn't do a good job of preserving it. And when I'm in Charlotte, a lot of times people would talk to me and I'll mention, well, I'm in Southport now. Oh, I love that town. I love it. What do you like about it? And it's always, I love how quaint it is. I love the history of it. I love seeing it on movies. I love seeing the historic buildings, the old buildings. So I wanted to mention tonight that why this document was not passed in 1980, I have no clue. But we're very, very lucky in this town that some developer did not come in here and just level a whole block and build a strip shopping center because there was nothing to stop it. And I'm sure we all remember the old BB&T building on the corner of Moore and Howell Street. We could have all kinds of stuff that looks like that. It's not very coastal, it's not very historic. So I wanted to get on the board to kind of preserve what we have. And one of the things I wanted to mention is I think back probably 15, 18 years ago, a gentleman came into town and he built the two shoeboxes on the yacht basin. And I believe he was also very interested in building condominium in what's now the parking lot. He also wanted to build gift shops, things like that. sounded a lot like Myrtle Beach. I don't think any of us really want that. I don't believe that's what we think Southport is. And so we were lucky that he basically, I believe, went bankrupt and went out of town. So, but we do have the two shoeboxes on the yacht basin, so we're stuck with that. And I think everybody's used to it now. So anyway, historic preservation is not anything new. It's been around forever. Charleston, South Carolina established the first historic preservation overlay district in 1931. Savannah, Georgia has the largest historic preservation district in the country. North Carolina is the coastal area of North Carolina. We've got Edenton, North Carolina, first colonial capital of North Carolina. It has a historic district. It's a lot like Southport. We've got Halifax, North Carolina, close to the coast, where the Halifax Resolve was written. It has a historic district. We have New Bern, North Carolina. I believe it was the second colonial capital of North Carolina. It has a historic district. We have Beaufort, North Carolina, right up the road from us. We looked at their historic district very closely because that town is very similar to us. And they have a historic district. We also have Manteo, where the Lost Colony play is. They have a historic district. So Southport should have a historic district. And I know a few people were a little worried about this, but trust me, it's nothing to be concerned about. Every town similar to Southport that's historic, you look at all of our brochures, all of our literature, it says Historic Southport, 1792. So if we let this slip away, if we let this history slip away, we can't get it back. And every one of us in this room tonight ought to be charged with passing this on to our grandchildren and to future generations. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board. I think it's going to be a no-brainer to pass this because, again, it can be tweaked. It's going to come before the board. Things can be changed. What is in there can be changed. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on this committee. Thank you.
Mr. Josh Klein McGee. Yeah, I see you already up.
Good evening, Mayor, Board. I'm just going to say a few things because we've all been here for a very long time. But my name is Josh Klein McGee. I'm an architect and member of the Historic Preservation Commission. My wife Susan and I moved to Southport 6.5 years ago, mainly because we love the historic homes and the downtown area. And I want to just throw in one thing to chime in on what Tal said. I also grew up in Charlotte, and I went to school there and lived there. And then I went away to school at NC State, and I came back to Charlotte, and I knew that they were tearing down all of their historic properties, but I said, they will never tear down the Masonic Lodge. I mean, that was a beautiful structure right there on North Tryon Street. I came back from NC State. Wachovia had built a parking deck. So I am just really, really committed to historic preservation. But like everybody has been talking about, we have to make it so that it's amenable to everybody, so that it's not overly restrictive. We want to improve the economic advantages that it gives to Southport. And I don't want to repeat myself, but or repeat what's already been said, but we have worked hard for 3 years to create guidelines that were not overly restrictive. We've held many public hearings. We've incorporated materials. I think that Jim McKee, Bonner, and Rick Keenis and I, we talked at one point that what we're concerned about is that what people see from the street as they drive by is the appearance. They want to have the look. So, Hardy board has been approved because it's something, there's different types of hardy board. And if you get the kind that has the grain in it, it looks like wood, who's going to know the difference, right? So it's all about what it looks like from the street. And just real quickly here, I'm an architect. I've worked with builders and developers for the past 40 years. And I got to tell you, generally speaking, their prime motivation is maximizing their return on investment. I mean, that's the way it works, sorry, but it's the truth. And growth and change are coming to Southport. We can't stop it. It's coming. The expansion of Highway 211 leads to the front door of Southport. We are the destination point, and growth will come. In fact, one day when I was kind of bored, I did a sketch of a toll gate right there at River Road and House Street, at Famous Subs, trying to figure out how we were going to control traffic from coming down House Street, and kind of a joke, but the truth is we're going to get a lot of traffic. And so I think that one of the things that I learned when I was in Raleigh, running an architectural office up there, is that Raleigh has the attitude that people are going to come, okay? But what you want is quality development. You want to make sure that you're getting high quality development in your area. And a historic district helps to maintain the monetary value of a community. Historic districts tend to have higher property values compared to non-historic areas. And increased property values attract quality investment in the area. So that's what I want to see. I want to have us have a pocket of historic homes over here, and then, let the area grow and do what it's going to do. But make sure we keep history and we don't lose it altogether. As many people have said, 20 years ago, it was turned down. And I'm really afraid that if we don't pass it this time, we're going to lose Southport to developers and speculative builders. So we have to put a stake in the ground. We have to say, this area over here, you can't mess up. And with that, I'm going to shut up and go away. Thank you.
Miss Sandy Spencer.
I don't have much to say. Again, my name is Sandy Spencer. I live at 410 West Brunswick Street in the house that my parents purchased in 1949 and which has been located on that lot since 1879. It is currently on the historic registry. And I like for it to stay there. I intend to keep it there. I do support the idea of historic preservation. And I think it's time for the city to have the ability to do that. But having read this document, I think it tends to be a little too specific, a little too restrictive. Right now, I have 2 trees on my lot. And Paula, I know that trees are already regulated, but they both need to come down. One of them deposited a very large limb on my porch on Sunday night. But now I have to replace those trees, but they are both too close to my house, and I can't do that. But having said that, all of that, I do think it's time for us to have historic preservation. I agree with most of what the other speakers have said. I do think this is a little bit too restrictive, or too specific, maybe is a better word. Thank you.
Joe Pierce. Jesse Pierce.
Well, I did not prepare a speech tonight, so this is kind of off the hip. Okay, I first want to say thank you to everybody who put all the work into this. I, however, will disagree, okay, with this. So I'm standing before y'all tonight, a servant. I am a servant first and foremost to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I've served this nation, okay, in the military, and I've even served this town, both as a law enforcement officer and with the fire department years ago, okay? So as I stand before y'all a servant, I want to remind y'all that y'all are servants as well to this town. And I love this town. I'm a native to this town, but it makes me no better and no worse than anybody who's just moved here. It makes their opinions just as valid as mine, I feel like. I own 320 College Street. I have children, and believe it or not, I know y'all are going to laugh, but I've also got 2 grandchildren. My 2 grandchildren and my cousin's grandchildren will also be 5th generation to the same property. Okay. I obtained the property to preserve the history. I do not need anybody to tell me what to do with that property. Nobody. And I want to know too, I mean, whose history am I trying to preserve? Am I taking this back to 1792? Does the 5 generations of my family, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July festival being held there where we gathered? Does that matter? You know, I appreciate the thought, and I think that there's also better answers than putting restrictions into place. I find it somewhat funny that we have such an amazing 4th of July celebration and festival here in this town to bring people together to come and celebrate freedom in a place that ultimately I see it as you're trying to restrict my freedoms, right? I should not have to have a permit to take down a tree on my property if I feel that it is a liability, unless you will assume that liability. My insurance company should not be responsible for that liability. You should be responsible for that liability, or whoever's telling me what I cannot do on my property. I pay taxes, right? Those taxes should be used for the infrastructure. They should be used for public safety. I mean, we have a phenomenal fire department. We have great staff there, great leadership, the police department. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of great employees throughout the town. But to throw so tight restrictions on us, you know, I'm doing it out of love and compassion because I care. I do not need the rules to tell me what to do. I think that there's also other ways, and I don't know if this has been explored or not. I've seen this happen before with families passing down property, that they put restrictions in deeds. So even if it does sell off, those restrictions still apply. And the only way that those restrictions can ever be lifted is that all the heirs have to sign off on that. So would that not be a better, if everybody here believes in saving history, to put that into a deed and pass it along without us trying to go through all these, hoops? I mean, it seems pretty simple. That's cut and dry. My fear is not the current people that sit here, because I believe everybody's heart's in the same place. And I think I hold the same standard that a lot of other people fear. It is the future of this. And I think that if people really care about the history and they want to preserve that, I think that there's another legal way of doing that through the deed process, as I was saying, and putting those restrictions into the deeds, to whether they pass to the next family generation, whether they pass through a sale, as opposed to me having to come and ask somebody for permission on any type of shutters or anything else. And I get it. The idea is great, but there's also better options. I'm doing what I'm doing because I care, because I want to preserve history, and I'm trying to make a difference. My question is also, I mean, we're sitting here when we're talking about this, but there's no discussion of, well, if somebody has a fence on a city right away, right? Whether it's been there since 1960, is that history? Does that fall into that has to stay, right? I think that there's a lot bigger issues at hand. Let me see here. Sorry, some of my notes are not that great. And honestly, I mean, it's starting to feel more like the town is ran as an HOA than it is even a city, right? I think that everybody's voices should be heard, and they should also be respected. And everybody in this town, I mean, it is bringing people here who care, that fall in love with what we have, because it is so special here. And it just seems like every time I'm turning around, you're hearing about things where people are trying to restrict this and restrict that, and we're saving this, and there's a lot bigger battles that I think that need to be, taken care of. I mean, we have water issues throughout the town, water retention. You say, I can't cut down a tree on my property and I just want to take one down, but then we let a developer come in and whack out an entire forest, right? But we care about the trees, right? We care about the environment, but we can whack out an entire forest of trees. It's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. Yeah, I'd love to save the trees. I'm watching oak trees get cut down and fall down over time. And it's part of a natural thing, I think, on one hand, because we do have a lot of storms, right? I hate to see them cut down, right? But I mean, there needs to be a complete level across the board. Well, they shouldn't be able to cut these woods down and just go in there and slap up 1,000 houses because we think that it's tax revenue. Well, yeah, to one hand, it is tax revenue, right? We're going to get some tax revenue from that, but there are also clients that we have to serve. There are also people we have to take care of that we have to provide services to. Their engineering, it's good water retention for what is there on their property, but it doesn't take into effect the rest of the community. So these homes who have been sitting here on some of these roads since the 60s and 70s are now flooding, who've never had any issues with water until the developing took place, right? But that's not taken into consideration. The engineering needs to be taken way longer or way beyond that. These developers, many of them are coming in, they're building here, right? They're taking their millions of dollars of profit and they're leaving and they're going to other counties, other states, right? And then we're left to stick or deal with the aftermath with the infrastructure. And that's a problem. And it's a concern of mine. I mean, every time I've come home, this place has changed more and more. And I understand it's inevitable. Okay. And not all of it's bad. I mean, we have some phenomenal people here. But I'm just asking, there is zero reason for us to be doing any of this, to even be having this conversation. If people really care, they're going to stand up and they're going to make a difference. You guys want to truly try to make a difference and you want people to buy into this history? Well, develop some pride into the town. And I think everybody here cares enough that they have pride for what we have, right? And they want to protect it. But we don't need the rules to try to protect that. We don't need any of this stuff. It's just, it's absolutely absurd. And I appreciate it. And it's not to take anything from any of you. I understand. I mean, that is years and years of work and I'm very grateful for it, and I appreciate everything that everybody does. I care and I love this town and I hate to see it falling apart. I feel like, and there seems to be a lot of issues that go on here and a lot of it has to do with people's pride. So that's all I have. Thank y'all.
Amy Patterson.
Hello, Amy Patterson, 102 West Nash Street. And I'll just, first of all, like say thank you for what you have looked at. And that was one of the key things when this first came up was to stick to the true historic register, the cost of replacing it and doing that restoration coming from Old Town Alexandria, Virginia that lived by that. And yes, we had to get our door painted and all that, knowing the cost it would to do that level would have been absolutely cost prohibitive. So thank you for the replacement materials and all that other stuff. Also, having basically lived through all of this, if you know where my house is right by Spikes. We went through all this, and thank you, Rich, as my architect on that. I will say this. I did exactly what I wanted anybody to do with this, to bring it back and basically have it be, just maintain that history. I firmly 1000% agreed with you up until about 2 years ago. And I was like, this is what you should do. People, you shouldn't have to legislate this. My challenge is 416 East Bay Street and whatever is happening across the street for me where the car insurance building is. So with that, to my points being, I totally agree with Rich. We got to account for the yacht basin as well as Bay Street and along Kingsley. If a historic marker for the quarantine houses were there, and this is historic, what's this? Now, understand, I will say the ship has sailed to what you had brought up, the yacht basin kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, what's on 416 East Bay, it's there. But something needs to be said and done so further egregious things do not occur. And that, so that is something I think should definitely be taken into consideration. Historic adjacent or whatever it is, but minimizing and impacting what is already there. And because who's going to stop them and put a skyscraper? Who knows? Well, obviously the structurally won't, but still. So I want to keep that in time. Also timing. Thank you for Rich for finding that. I think if I actually compressed, by the way, my house took 4.5 years. And by the way, I saw your house on 320. I was dying to see that thing come back to life. But Glenn, I think my husband would have killed me if I took on another major project. So I'm glad you are. But with that timing wise, I think if I actually compress the amount of time that people spent working on the house, and by the way, finding the people that can do that kind of work is few and far between. I think if I actually compressed it to people actually working was maybe 2 years, but it took 4. So anything, and knowing that these contractors try to get a hold of them to try to do this work. And if they're not signing up, they're not going to show up until they know they can actually do something. So please really look at that timing because that does have an impact and being able to make these things move forward. Also, one other thing real quick is please double check and reconcile how you do your tree permitting and alignment with this. Having had to get a tree permit and go through that. And because like replanting a tree to make up for what you cut down, please look at that and just make sure you reconcile what the tree permitting process and ask is with what this is asking for here. Also, one of the things too is in that replacement aspect, the code. I know obviously in my house, because the porches were literally disintegrating off the front of my house, I could not rebuild them the way they were because code wouldn't allow me. So think of somehow a way to incorporate if it is something that you know, if you have to restore, because, and that's something I know, like if say your railing is completely falling apart on your front porch and you just say, hey, replace the wood. Well, is that still so much where they go, oh no, now it actually has to be code height. And that's why my porches look different because of that. So I would definitely keep that in mind. Also, in that vein, I like my description that the siding and features do not appear to be original. I wish my bank account reflected the restoration to that accuracy. But either way, but my main and biggest concern is to the point, I hate that we have to do this. But right now, what is the situation? I see you have new construction, but what is happening where car insurance is happening? Because right now, basically, whatever that's going to be, we're going to have another, it's, in my opinion, it's going to be another 416 East Street that's going to sit there right. So I really like to understand what is actually happening with that property. All I know is I saw 2 major concrete slabs being poured. And to my understanding, I don't think I know they had a demo permit. I did not think they had a build permit. I never saw what the final plans were. And I really, really doubt they're in alignment with what you guys are thinking. So that is my number one concern, and understanding what this means in terms of projects that are underway. And sadly enough, the people that are doing that have been here for forever. So. Huh? You need to address that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just, you know.
Ma'am, when you
I'm
turn
sorry.
your head like that
Oh,
and you
okay.
walk away from the microphone, it's not being recorded. So
Okay.
if we want to keep everybody's recording, so
Mhm.
I know you want to talk to the chief and the people here, but
Sure.
just look this direction. Thank.
Okay, well, I will leave it at that though, but I'm definitely curious to see where we stand on the other permits and how it aligns with these anticipated guidelines.
Cheryl Lapola.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Aldermen. My name is Cheryl Lapola. I live at 316 West Brunswick Street and in the proposed overlay district. I also have a rental property on Lord Street, a little cottage. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning from UNC Chapel Hill, and I had the privilege of taking a course in historic preservation from Myrick Howard who served as president of Preservation North Carolina for 45 years. So I was very lucky. I've restored 3 homes in the historic district, and all 3 of these homes have been on the Historic Society's home tour. I'm a lifetime member of the Southport Historic Society. I've also been selling real estate in the historic district for almost 20 years. And my experience has been that people in the historic district go to great lengths to preserve and restore the historic features of their homes. That's what's attracted them here. I applaud the commission for what they've done for the development of the document, the Southport Local Historic District Design Standards. I think these standards provide useful guidance for those seeking to renovate or add on to a historic home or for new construction. I will repeat this. I support the use of the design standards as guidance. I do not, however, support the concept of historic district residents being required to go through an approval process for replacing their roofs. If I want to replace my roof, I'm going to have to go and get a certificate of appropriateness that may take up to 180 days. If I want to replace my front windows, I'm going to have to go through the same process. If I want to replace my front door, I'm going to have to go through that process. My front walkway, same process. Or if I want to redo more than 25% of the landscaping in my front yard, I'm going to have to do the same thing. This just seems onerous. And the other part is that, no offense to the preservation group, but a lot of these people they don't live in the historic district, so they're not the ones that are going to be subject to the expense. And we're probably going to have to get lawyers, engineers, anything to get approval on things. And I think it's too much. And I don't think the system is broken. I mean, everyone here tonight has talked about how beautiful our historic district is. Is there a problem? I don't know that. I think we might be making a lot out of something that really isn't a problem. I mean, I would support establishing the overlay district and establishing the use of the standards as guidance, but not, when somebody comes and they're going to build something and it's in the historic district, give them the standards and say, here, this will help you. But don't require it. I just don't think it's necessary. I think the town has got so many other problems. Like, why don't we just fill the potholes? Make that our first priority. Let's repair our streets and fill our potholes. Let me see. So really, that sums it up. I think everybody did a good job with the design standards. I think they can be useful. I just think that the process that's unfolding here is going to be onerous. I would be interested to know how much staff it's going to take to administer this. And I think that really in the historic district, you already have a bunch of residents who really want to do the right thing. Thank you.
Miss Bonnie Bray.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Bray. I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. My husband and I live at 515 Quartermaster Drive. We are not in the historic district. When John and I moved here, we were very much attracted by the historic district. And since then, we have lived in 2 houses, that one on the edge of the historic district at Brown and Clarendon, but on the wrong side. That side of the street is not included. Where we live now is at the end of St. George. So we're surrounded by historic properties. When we walked our dog, it was, a regular pattern of being immersed in the historic district. And luckily, the builders who are our house, we've lived there 9 years, our entire neighborhood looks like it could be in the historic district. And I think that's my point, is that the historic district, even though the cost is not borne by people who don't live in the historic district, it's still we're integrated with the historic district. Southport is not that big of a city. many people, not just the people who live in the historic district, are vested in the strength of our economy, the strength of our interactions with each other, all of these things. It's as if the historic district is a living, breathing part of all of us. It completely affects people's outside opinion of Southport and the people who live in the town. We're assured that we live in a place that represents generations of people. And this is, I cannot overstress the importance of protecting that rare and unique gift. And I know that you can't be all things to all people. You never want to let perfect be the enemy of the good. Never. And the fact that this is now the third time that we have gotten, well, we've gotten a lot closer this third time, and I hope that this is the last time. This document is purposely designed to be utilized on a case-by-case basis. The guidelines, Cheryl is right, they are guidelines. And all of the deliberations for certificates of appropriateness are going to take place in a quasi-judicial setting. And people are going to have a very fair and open opportunity to have other people, have a window into the future of their home, have it not a real window, but, have a look at how the future, how the past can be preserved going into the future. So that's all of our responsibilities. And there's no way really to depend on the kindness of strangers in a case in this case, which is so important to our future generations, to our current generation, but more to the point, to all the children and the grandchildren who want to have the same preciousness of Southport that so many people who live here grew up with. So I urge the Board of Aldermen to keep in mind what it is we all want is to preserve, protect, and allow this whole dream really of Southport. I mean, it is a very unique place, but allow this whole dream of a place that we live in, pinch us every day and say how lucky we are to live here. This can be preserved into the future if we pay attention to what happens on a case-by-case basis, which this process is set up to achieve, and how we can do that, keeping in mind what is very specific about Southport. This is not New Bern's design guidelines, or historic overlay district. It's not any other towns but Southport, and it was created by people many people, half the commission actually, who were raised here and know the history of each of these houses, know the history of the people who lived in them, know the good things and the bad things like the Twin Towers. We don't want the Twin Towers to happen again, but we also don't want the courthouse to be razed, which it could be raised right now because we don't have a mechanism to enforce what we all know to be true. Southport is worth preserving. Let's get started and let's do it. Thank you.
I have 2 emails that were sent in. First one is.
I need to turn that light.
Can you hear me now? Is better? Okay. The Honorable Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen, and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. Holy moly. We are writing to express our serious concerns about the treatment of our property at 416 East Bay Street, a site of indisputable historical significance that appears to be facing calculated exclusion from Southport's preservation protections. Though the current house is newly constructed, the land itself is historic. The property lies within the original Smithfield Township and includes parcels 238 IB 020304 and 238 IB 020305. It is the documented site of the Caroon Crab Factory, a business the city itself commemorates in Kingsley Park signage, identifying it as a site of historical significance. Yet the city now appears willing to disregard this very history when it comes to our property, the actual location of that same factory. This land, also owned by Kirby Sullivan and later by C.B. Caroon, a former mayor of Southport. These figures played notable roles in the town's early history, and their association with the site makes its preservation even more vital. Despite this, the city planner's office, Thomas Lloyd at time of request, denied us a variance to build within the original footprints of the mayor's home, a request entirely aligned with historic preservation values. That denial reflects a broader pattern of inconsistent and sometimes exclusionary treatment. In January 2024, city officials halted work on the property when non-English speaking laborers were present, despite there being no regulatory violation. The workers were unable to understand the directive, and this action brought the project to a standstill unnecessarily. This is not the first time the city has shown an interest in acquiring or controlling this land. In 2018, we were approached by officials who asked us to donate the property to the city, offering a condescending explanation of the tax break we could receive for doing so. We declined. Given what has followed, we are concerned that the current exclusion from the historic district may serve as a workaround to the earlier request. Most notably, we have public records dating back to March 2024 showing that the city plans to install 11 public parking spaces on or adjacent to this property within the 99-foot right-of-way. This plan was reinforced by a parking study conducted in January 2025. However, this development is both unnecessarily and poorly justified. There is already parking in the area. What's needed is better enforcement, not expansion. Moreover, a vacant parcel at 101 South Kingsley with no historic entanglements, and it is not in a flood zone, making it a far more logical location for any needed parking. The city's decision to exclude our historically significant site from the proposed district boundaries while targeting it from development raises serious concerns about the intent and fairness. This is not preservation. This is selective planning. The city is recognizing the Caroon Crab Factory as historic in Kingsley Park, but ignoring the same history on the land where it actually happened. It invokes preservation rules from convenient and discards them when they stand in the way of its own development goals. We have invested significant time, money, and care into restoring this land, not just as homeowners, but as stewards of Southport's cultural history. We deserve at minimum fair and consistent treatment, and so does this property. We respectfully request this letter be entered into the official record and read out loud during the public meeting on July 10th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We further ask the committee and the Board of Aldermen to reconsider any decisions that have excluded 416 East Bay Street from historic district protections and to uphold the same preservation standards across both public and private interest. Best regards, the Russell family, 416 East Bay Street, Southport, North Carolina, 28461.
Madam Clerk, you got another one?
Yes, okay, last one.
Okay.
Okay, dear Tori, after reviewing the recommendation, I would like to go on record in favor of adopting it. City planning staff, per the recommendation of Historic Preservation Commission, presented the proposed local historic district overlay zoning district to the planning board at their June 19th, 2025 meeting. The planning board recommends approval of the designation of the Southport Local Historic District with a zoning map overlay. The planning board recommendation. Thank you. Sincerely, Shelley Plo Fashina. And that is all.
Second.
All right, so we're done with all the people who have signed up, ma'am. How about we go out of public? I will entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Is a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. We're going to take a 7-minute break. And if you've not been in the building, the facilities are down this hall here.